Damichael Cole, I've got time today. I've got some time to suffer some fools at ESPN. I said I wasn't going to do this. I posted, not today, Satan, but today is a different day. Today is Friday here on Locked On Grizzlies. We're going to be introducing a new worry poll, how worried Damichael and I are about the Memphis Grizzlies as they enter a pretty important weekend for them. And we're also going to preview Jazz, Clippers, all that and more. We're going to lead off with Ja versus Tyrese Halliburton on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax of Bluff City Media, joined by my wonderful, illustrious co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He is the Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. I am the Grizzlies columnist for Bluff City Media. The two of us together, with our powers combined, make up this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you so much for joining us, however you're taking in the show, whether it is on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. As proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. We are grateful that you are here with us. And as always, if you're not already an everydayer, hopefully you will become one, checking out Damichael and I each and every time a new Locked On Grizzlies drops. Damichael Cole, I hope you are doing well on this illustrious, I like that word. That might be the word of the day on the podcast. Illustrious,
I like it too.
Friday. Exciting times covering the Memphis Grizzlies. Not really. I'm just trying to be as positive as possible. It's exciting because today is a new day and it's a new opportunity for the Grizzlies to figure out how to not be the worst offense in the NBA.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see where they go from here. The magic number is 114.
Ooh.
They haven't reached 114 points in a game yet. In
That's
fact,
bad.
Joe, to put that in perspective, there are 14 teams in the NBA averaging, just average, not their highest, not their lowest.
So like on a mediocre midnight. Yeah.
On a regular night, averaging 113 points. The Grizzlies got to clean that up. That's the magic number. Can they get to 114? That's what I want to see.
I like that. A preview of our preview later on in the show, perhaps. And Damichael and I, we're going to talk about how worried we are looking at this 1-7 Grizzlies team heading into an important West Coast road trip. But before we get to that, I said I wasn't going to do this, Damichael, and I was being so good. I was being so disciplined. You would have been so proud of me.
You did.
You should be proud of me that I didn't do it on yesterday's show because I wanted to, but it would have just been a 30-minute rant.
I remember a quote one day, Joe. A wise man once said, I tried to take the high road, but I forgot the address.
Yeah, well, I certainly forgot the address today because ESPN, our good friends over at ESPN, my good friends, I want to stress, Damichael Cole might, maybe in the future be employed by ESPN, and I don't want to put him in that universe. I will never be employed by ESPN, so I can say this. The good people, wink, wink, over at ESPN put out the 25 players under 25 list. And again, I swore up and down I was done getting mad at ESPN. But these people at ESPN, Damichael, I want to stress, I'm not necessarily mad at the top three. They currently have Luka Doncic number one, which right? Yeah. I think that's totally fair. Anthony Edwards number two, which I think is a little bit high, smidge high, a bit of
it'll work.
A bit of a momentum thing, right? He's got all the momentum, like Ja Morant once had the momentum. It's almost like Anthony Edwards is kind of replacing Ja in that hype train machine right now. Victor Wembanyama at number three, which right? I think I would be cool with him being number two. But at number three makes all the sense in the world. So I'm not mad at the top three. Number four.
Ja, right?
Not Ja Morant. It was Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers. Now, is Tyrese Halliburton an excellent basketball player? 100%. I think you can make an argument, and I know you're not a huge fan of comparisons to Michael, but I'm going to throw this one out there. You can take it or leave it. I see a lot of Steve Nash in Tyrese Halliburton. I think his game flashes a lot of Nash, and that's lofty praise, right? Like
that's
Nash
a good one. Yeah.
Nash was a very, very, very good basketball player. They have Tyrese Halliburton number 4 in front of Ja Morant. Now, again, I fall into the trap. This is including future projections, and Ja is currently suspended, blah, 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 blah. But there are people on X whose identities will be protected who said that they would seriously consider a Ja Morant for Tyrese Halliburton straight up swap. They would rather at this stage, because of all the baggage that Ja carries, have Tyrese Halliburton instead of Ja Morant. Ja Morant, who has played in meaningful playoff games and put up numbers that only guys like Michael Jordan, LeBron James have put up in the playoffs at his age. They would rather have a guy who has never been in the postseason, never been good enough to carry his team in such a manner. Ja Morant's been doing it literally since he entered the league. So I'll pose it to you, partner, because I'm being very disciplined right now. I want to make sure you have a chance to explain and talk about this.
Yeah.
Who would you rather have, considering everything? Because at least Tyrese Halliburton can play right now, right? Would you rather have Tyrese Halliburton or Ja Morant with all the information that we currently have at our disposal moving forward? Which one of those two guys would you ride with?
Well, I'm gonna give the direct answer first, and then I'm gonna maneuver around a little bit. My direct answer is I'd rather have Ja Morant,
which makes a heck of a lot more sense, right? That seems logical to say out loud.
He's been there, he's done that. He's had the 40+ point playoff games. He has been one of the best players in the NBA at the point guard position. He's proven to be a solid playmaker at this stage of his career, and he's only been getting better year by year in that category. With Tyrese Halliburton, the playmaking is plus. He may be in a couple years the best playmaking point guard in the league if he's not already there. He is so talented. But when I think about the NBA right now, it's a scoring league, and the point guard position as just point guards, like running the show, table setting, it's kind of like a old thing now. Tyrese Halliburton gives me those throwback vibes. I see him being a guy who can maybe give you 22, 23, but he's never going to be a 27, 28 guy, points per game. Ja can be that guy and can give you 8 assists on top of it, potentially 9, depending on the team around him. And then it's a fit thing too with these two guys, because I don't think it's Ja by a landslide. I really love Tyrese Halliburton's game. If you watch Team USA play, then you saw how much better the team just looked from a flow perspective from when he was on the floor compared to Jalen Brunson. Like he has some real game. And here's the thing. I think if you put him on a roster, Tyrese Halliburton that already has like a pretty much a dynamic number one go-to scorer and things like that, where he can just distribute the ball and then get his, like a Steve Nash did in the past, right? With Amari Stoudemire and those guys in Phoenix. I think he had like Joe Johnson and those guys. Like, you distribute to those scorers and then you get yours when you can. I feel like that's the perfect scenario for him. Whereas Ja is more of I can do it myself, or I can give it to my teammates. And a lot of people forget, Ja will tell you himself, he rather pass. It's just the situation in Memphis has called him to be more of that scoring point guard. But I'm going to say Ja, not by a whole lot, but I think it's clear to me that Ja Morant should be above Tyrese Halliburton at this point.
It's Ja by a whole lot for me.
A whole lot. There you go.
It's Ja by a whole lot. And I think I want to stress, I understand the idea that it's nice to have someone that can play right now. Right. We would not be 1-7 with covering the Memphis Grizzlies if Ja Morant was playing. Right. I just don't believe that would be the case. So that, of course, matters. And there's no guarantee that Ja comes back in December and everything is hunky-dory, sunshine and rainbows. There are no more problems. So the concerns about his future are fair. I just think that if you're going to give other players benefit of the doubt, right? Like Zion Williamson still being on that list, although he's never shown that he can be healthy for extended periods.
Right.
If you're going to give other players benefit of the doubt on things, I feel like you should give it to Ja Morant in this instance. And you can disagree with that opinion. I am going to assume that the city that gave us second chance heroes like Zach Randolph and Tony Allen is going to embrace Ja. Ja is going to embrace the city. I'm trying to look on the bright side here. And a good way to look on the bright side to end it here, this part of the conversation, Damichael, I'm pretty sure, and I don't expect you to know, I'll double check it. I think the Grizzlies are the only team that have two guys in the top 10 in this 25 under 25 list, because Jaren Jackson squeaked by there at number 10. It's possible Cleveland was in that mix, but I'm pretty sure Ja at 4 and Jaren at 10, they might be the only team that had two in the top 10. That's a reason to be positive and optimistic, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've known that for a while. These guys, I mean, between Dez, Ja, and Dez is 25 now, so he's not on the under group anymore,
Right.
in that category. But for a while it was Dez, Ja, Jaren kind of being those guys leading that core. So not surprised at all. Honestly, Jaren is the one that's probably a little low to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably have him in front of LaMelo Ball. But here's the top 10. Jaren Jackson Jr., LaMelo Ball, Darius Garland, maybe he's too high. Zion at number 7. Again, we're assuming that he's going to be healthy. Cade Cunningham at 6, who's really good, but that almost feels kind of high. Ja Morant at 5. Tyrese Halliburton at 4, LOL. Wembanyama, Edwards, and Doncic, like we talked about. So, yeah, the Grizzlies are the only team that have 2 in the top 10. Cleveland is close. Mobley is at number 12.
Yep,
but 2 in the top 10 for Memphis. The future is still bright, despite how dark the present might be. And speaking of that, just how concerned are we about the current state of affairs in the Memphis Grizzlies? It's a new Friday segment we're going to call the Worry Check. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Jase Medical. Damichael, we've been through a lot with our listeners, our viewers, right? We have been up and down, left and right. We're currently enduring the worst stretch of basketball that we've seen the Memphis Grizzlies play in quite some time. We get fired up for all of these different things. I'm thankful for the connection that we have with our everydayers and our dear listeners and viewers. And today I want to be a little more personal about that level of conversation, because we live in uncertain times, right? Natural disasters, all sorts of unrest all over the globe. You want to guarantee that you have the ability to access important medications to your life, your well-being, the way that you live, and in some cases, life-saving medication. You want to go right now online to jasemedical.com and receive your 12-month supply of daily medications. You can also get access to life-saving antibiotics there through the Jase Case antibiotic kit. Don't be caught unprepared. Everybody should be empowered to care for themselves as well as their loved ones to make sure that they are prepared for the unexpected. Jase handles everything from online evaluations to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. If you or someone you love would get peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med or that Jase Case, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your purchase. When we come back, Damichael and I are doing a worry check when it comes to the Memphis Grizzlies. Stick around. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm Joe Mullinax of Bluff City Media, joined by Damichael Cole, my partner, my co-host of Locked On Grizzlies. He is the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. We can leave the ridiculousness of Ja Morant versus Tyrese Halliburton behind for now and refocus on the Memphis Grizzlies that are currently playing and how concerned we are. So here's how I envision the worry check going, Damichael. I don't want it to be like a boring scale of 1 to 10 kind of thing, numbers, that sort of thing. I want it to have a little bit of a Locked On Grizzlies twist. So I am going to compare it to something that maybe I would worry about on a daily basis. And my level of worry when it comes to the 1-7 Memphis Grizzlies is like being worried that on my way to drop my children off at school or daycare, they're going to throw up in the car and I have to turn around and take them home and figure out who's going to watch them that day. All right. So that's relatable content for some people out there. Maybe not you, Damichael,
Yeah.
but you kind of dread that in the car. Like, oh my God, I want to just get them to school. They can go get sick there if they want. My wife can pick them up. I just don't want it to happen to me. Oh, thank goodness I dropped them off. We're fine. And you get to school, right? Or you get to work, wherever you're going. So it's unlikely, right? Kids get sick, but they don't get sick often like that, but it's still possible. I am that level of worried. Is it possible that Memphis stays one of the worst teams in the NBA? Yeah, it's possible. But I still think on November 10th here, it's improbable, and the Grizzlies will eventually turn it around. It may not be enough to get out of the play-in, right? They could be 10-15 or worse by the time Ja Morant returns. But I do think Ja's return will give them a jolt. I think they'll be in that level of conversation. I don't think they're going to be this bad. So I'm worried, but not that worried. Where do you kind of stand?
Okay, so we're using real life scenarios here. So I got one for you, Joe.
Yeah, and maybe yours could be less old guy. Like, we have a younger audience as well here at Locked On Grizzlies. So less old, washed man.
Let's see. So my example here is the level of concern that I have right now about the Grizzlies is similar to this. It's like when you're expecting an influx of cash, whether it's someone owe you some money, whether it's a paycheck, or whether it's just a lump sum of cash that's about to come your way, and you want to use it to get something that has to be paid for by a certain deadline. That deadline is coming up, and you're waiting minute by minute, hour by hour on that cash. That's my level of concern.
That is an excellent. This is fantastic. You just made the segment. Good job, Damichael. That is a wonderful one.
I knew you liked that one, but and that influx of cash that the Grizzlies is waiting on is, of course, this team getting healthy, so we can see what they bring to the table, so they can cash it in, and we can see how much they're worth. Like, what is this team worth? I mean, we see John Conchar still on the injury report. Zion Williams is now listed as questionable for this upcoming game as well. But it goes beyond that. We know Ja Morant, we know Derrick Rose and all these guys. Like, you want to see this team whole because, we mentioned it in yesterday's episode. At some point, the conversation with Taylor Jenkins is going to start heating up. And personally, I really don't think it's a fair conversation if we never see him with at least 75 to 80% of his main guys. And we haven't seen that yet. So that's where I am on a level of concern. Basically, the Grizzlies need to get as many of these guys healthy as possible before Ja Morant gets back, so they can kind of say, hey, this is what this team is made of right now. And then, of course, when Ja gets back, same case scenario, because it's hard to tell. And right now, they just don't look that good.
They don't look that good. There's a lot of NBA players in name only currently getting significant minutes. And I don't mean that as an indictment on them moving forward, right? Like, if this team was fully healthy and they had a fully normal rotation, Jake LaRavia is probably down with the Memphis Hustle and he just stays there. Yep. But they don't have that luxury. They don't have that depth that they've been able to lean on over the last couple of years. For a variety of reasons, it's dissipated. It no longer exists. I like that level of concern. I think it's fair. What would it take for your concern to go considerably beyond that? Like, let's say we do the worry meter again next week, our worry check next Friday. And we're discussing it, and the Grizzlies went 0-3. They have 3 games between now and next week, so they have a nice little break coming up after their Tuesday game.
Right.
Let's say they're 0-3. They're 1-10. Is that enough to make you be that much more concerned, or you think you're kind of steady as she goes at this current state of worry check?
There's no more steady for me. It doesn't even take the whole road trip, honestly. I think this next game is the one. If you don't beat the Jazz, home, because look, I keep saying it, but you could see it. We could go down the list right now. The schedule, you think what we've seen up to this point was a decent schedule. They've had plenty of winnable games that they've already played. What we're about to see coming up is brutal. After this Jazz game, you go to the Clippers, you go to the Lakers, you go to the Spurs, and you get the Celtics at home. You go to Houston. We thought that would be a checkmark game. Houston's 4-3.
They're pretty good.
Won 4 straight games.
They look pretty good right now.
And then after that, you get the Suns. Looks like Devin Booker's getting close. Bradley Beal's back for them. The Timberwolves look like the class of the NBA right now defensively.
They look really good.
Then you get the Jazz again at home. But after that, you go on the road to the Mavs, who look like one of the best teams so far in the Western Conference. You go on the road to Phoenix. Then you get the Mavs again. You get 2 against Houston. And then you go to OKC. All of this is right before Ja gets back. There are no easy games in that stretch. The easiest opponent that I think I just listed is Utah. And that's a team that's already blowed you out. So you got to win this game on Friday. If they don't win on Friday, I mean, they're probably not going to be favored in many of those games that I just named. So it's like it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. They got to get this game. If they don't win this one, I'm not concerned because of what's already happened. I'm concerned because I know what's coming behind that.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. Never mind. I'm gonna save that question for another episode. I was gonna ask you, say they go 0-3 over these next 3 games. We're gonna preview the next couple on Locked On Grizzlies here next. Say they lose. They're off from Tuesday to Saturday. I'm just saying, if you were going to consider making a change, any kind of change, that's a long stretch of time to make a change. I'm not advocating for it. I agree with you that it's hard to judge Taylor Jenkins right now. He literally won 107 games the last 2 regular seasons.
He's literally coming into the season. He was on pace to set the Grizzlies franchise record, for wins.
So I think that we need to kind of pump the brakes. But if you want to be overreactionary, that's a pretty long stretch to make some sort of change to what is currently happening, whether it's a roster change or coaching change, whatever the case might be. But hopefully we don't have to talk about that. Hopefully the next time we're on Locked On Grizzlies, the Grizzlies are 2-0 and we can be a little more upbeat about our next worry check. But we're going to preview Jazz and Clippers games coming up over the next few days against Memphis next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by PrizePicks. With the basketball season now officially here, you can pick combo projections across both football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections at PrizePicks that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can go LeBron James and Travis Kelce together at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions, which is that's just so much fun. It's such a unique idea to PrizePicks. And PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. Football and basketball games in particular, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. PrizePicks is a blast to play. You go against the numbers available, not against individual players. It is a lot of fun. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100 with the good folks over at PrizePicks. We preview Grizzlies Jazz and Grizzlies Clippers, a matinee game for the Memphis Grizzlies as they begin a road trip this weekend. We'll talk about that next. Stay with us here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Wow.
There you go.
Reset, rewind. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your co-host that I promise is not having a mental breakdown, Joe Mullinax of Bluff City Media, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Make sure you're checking him out on X at Damichael C. Follow me on X at Joe Mullinax. Between the two of us, all sorts of wonderful Grizzlies content when we are not having multiple brain farts in subsequent fashion. Damichael, I'm fascinated by these next couple of games because it's kind of like the low and the high, right? Yeah. Like the Utah Jazz game on Friday, there's already rumors Walker Kessler's out for the next couple of weeks or months, even maybe. He's out for the foreseeable future. So he will not participate in this game. There's reports that the Jazz are already kind of considering what tanking will look like for them. The Jazz is a very winnable game. And then you go into Sunday against the now with James Harden Los Angeles Clippers, and you look at a team with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, other depth beyond those guys. There's just so much that the Clippers could do to Memphis, theoretically, that the Grizzlies don't have the firepower to compete with right now. So it feels like I agree with what you said earlier in the show. The Jazz game is their best bet. But to compete in both games, for a 1-7 team, let's just focus on competing.
Yeah.
Across both games, what does Memphis have to do to be competitive, not just against the Clippers on Sunday, but against the Jazz on Friday today?
The one thing that they've been still good at so far, and that's defense. The defense, as long as you're playing solid defense, you're going to stay in games. And they'll need to get over the hump, by what they do on the offensive end. But the defense has kept them in the game, whether it was against, the Nuggets, whether it was this last game we saw against Miami, and in several other games. We were just talking to Taylor Jenkins after that loss to Miami about how the Grizzlies have been right there in many of their games. And the reason why is defense. They're not getting in shootouts. I mean, we haven't seen any 125 to 122 games around here. It's mainly the defense keeping the Grizzlies in the game. They can do that against Utah. We saw how well Utah shot it at home. Guess what? Probably not going to shoot as well on the road. And I think Walker Kessler is a big missing piece. They're going to start their rookie, Keontae George. A lot of people in Utah, from what I've heard, they love that kid. So
he looks pretty solid from what I've seen.
He looks good. I'm really excited to see him, see what he brings to the table for him. And then that Clippers game. How about this, show? Yeah, the Clippers got all this firepower. But what if I said this? What if I say if the Grizzlies are to beat the Clippers, this might be the chance to do it, because they don't have an identity right now. They're figuring it out. And what we saw is, Paul George, before the trade to James Harden, looked like a top 3 wing in the NBA by the level he was playing. In the last 2 games, haven't been really good for him. And Kawhi Leonard, is talking about trying to find his way in this thing. We know Russell Westbrook's got to figure out the ball handling stuff with James Harden and all that. So they're finding their way. I think the Clippers, I saw a stat said in the 5 games before James Harden, they were averaging like 121 points per game. And since they've gotten him, they're averaging 95 points in the couple games since. So they're still going through that adjustment. The Grizzlies can strike them at the right time. But at the end of the day, if you play defense in both of those games, you'll be in the games. Now, we know the Clippers as constructed, they'll be better, equipped to close a game out because they have 2-3 guys who are pretty good isolation scorers. And Utah has Markkanen, who probably, you can make a case. I'm not saying he will be, but you can make a case that he'll be the best player on the floor in that Grizzlies Jazz game. I mean, he looks like the real deal. Like this isn't Chicago, Lauri Markkanen. This isn't where did he play before that? Cleveland, Chicago. This isn't that guy. This is a star in the making right here. But defense is the key. The defense has still been really good. They're still top 5 in blocks and steals. We know they're always, near the league, top of the league in the stocks. They're still right there. Turn those blocks and steals to easy transition points, play solid defense, and you could go 2-0, but you could at least, split the next 2 games.
Defense is the priority because defense travels, right? Whether you're at the friendly confines of FedEx Forum or you're at, what do they call the Los Angeles?
Crypto.com.
Oh, God, crypto. Like the crypt is probably what they try. No, let's go play at the crypt. It's stupid. And there'll always be Staples to me, damn it. I think that the big thing beyond defense is transition opportunities. Any chance they can get to have as many possessions as possible. So whether it's getting out and running offensively to add to their pace, whether it is offensive rebounding, the assist to turnover ratio is what I'm watching. When your offense is struggling, you need as many chances as possible to score the rock. And one of the nice things, and I don't want to be disrespectful to Walker Kessler, you want guys healthy. Walker Kessler not being there, Bismack Biyombo should have a field day. This might be a game, he'll have a chance to get 12, 14, 16 boards and really help Memphis on the offensive glass in particular. This could be his first Steven Adams light kind of contest where he truly brings out the best in what Memphis can be offensively right now. That still might be an average NBA offense. What was the number you said? 113, 114?
113.
That's average in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's average in the NBA, but maybe they can get there thanks in part to Bismack Biyombo rebounding, thanks in part to getting more transition buckets, creating turnovers, thanks in part to protecting the ball when they are in half-court sets. Getting as much protection for the basketball as possible is what matters most, in my opinion. So between that and the defensive end that Damichael brought up, plenty of things to look for, not just against the Jazz tonight, but also against the Clippers in that matinee game coming up on Sunday. Thank you guys so much for checking out Locked On Grizzlies, wherever you are, however you're taking in the show. It is much appreciated. YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Be an everydayer. Make us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time we are together. Damichael, the next time that you and I are together here on Locked On Grizzlies, the Grizzlies will have played the Jazz. They will have played the Clippers. They'll be staring down a showdown with LeBron James and the Lakers in the next day or two. Lots to discuss as this team kind of tries to find their way after this really cold start to the season.
Yes, there'll be a lot to discuss. And I tell you what, when we get here for Monday's episode, it's going to be some pretty revealing stuff. You know, these next two games, Grizzlies are 1-7 right now. So that'll be 10 games played. And I think we'll learn a lot over these next two games. Hopefully they get, a couple of these guys back, man. Xavier Tillman Sr. is one that really stands out to me, especially against that Clippers game. If you remember last year, he guarded Kawhi Leonard really well. It'd be nice to have him in the fold for a game like that.
It would be nice to have him in the fold. It's all hands on deck as best you can when you've started the season this poorly. The Grizzlies have some digging to do to get out of the hole that they have placed themselves in. But there's 96 minutes of basketball to be played between now and our next episode, and Damichael and I will break down every bit of it that we can in our next show. For my wonderful co-host, Damichael Cole of The Commercial Appeal, I am Joe Mullinax of Bluff City Media. We both are of Locked On Grizzlies. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube, have a great weekend. We'll catch you next time on Locked On Grizzlies.